sometimes there are stories around this time in spring training that can get blown out of proportion, and maybe one of them is this Bob Nightingale story on David Price. It could be, because if you read the story, I don't think that Bob Nightingale does David Price any favors with the headline. I don't think he's doing him any favors. And what I mean by that, what I mean by not doing him any favors is the headline reads, and sorry, my phone once again messed up. I'm trying to load things here and things are not loading. The headline says, "Free from the grind of Boston, David Price is loving his new life with the Dodgers. I couldn't be happier." That's a quote from Price in the headline. Quote, "I couldn't be happier," end quote. Again, let me read that headline. In the USA Today by Bob Nightingale. "Free from the grind of Boston, David Price is loving his new life with the Dodgers. Quote, I couldn't be happier," end quote. The first part of the story is a quote from David Price talking about how there's such a big difference with the way the media is handling him already. They had the introductory press conference with the Dodgers, David Price and Mookie Betts, and David Price gives a quote to Bob Nightingale about how different it was after that introductory press conference with the Dodgers, how different it was with the Dodgers than it was with the Red Sox, how different the media was. Here's a quote from Price. He says, quote, "It's such a big difference from Boston to here. Really, it's night and day." Price continues, "That was a big day for me, a very big day. I came in, got undressed, showered, came back to my locker, and stood there for 10 to 15 minutes. There were maybe 2 or 3 reporters hanging out, talking to other guys, and nobody came over to talk to me about my day. I couldn't believe it. It was like after me and Mookie had our introductory press conference at Dodger Stadium, we walk off the field when it was all done, and Mookie says, 'That's it? Is this a joke?' End quote. So David Price obviously by Bob Nightingale, asked about the difference with the media, and I don't know if Nightingale asked him first and Price answered, or if Price was just kind of letting it all out, opening his chest, going, wow, this is a relief, and just went off without being asked about it. I mean, maybe. It's possible. Here's the deal. It's very clear that David Price hated the media in this town. And he's not the first guy to hate the media in this town, and he won't be the last. It can be obnoxious. It can be annoying. It can be difficult to deal with. If negative things being said about you will affect you, right? Especially in the day of social media. David Price was a guy who cares. He's a guy who cares what other people think about him. Certainly, he was a guy who cared what people in Boston thought about him. To the point where if anybody said anything bad about him, it would really piss him off. It would really affect him, even if it wasn't that bad. And the perfect example for that is when he confronted Hall of Famer Dennis Eckersley on the team plane. Dennis Eckersley, one of the broadcasters for the Red Sox on NESN, who is known to tell it like it is. And he's great. Eck is one of the best in the biz at being a color commentator, breaking down a game. And he says what's on his mind, and I think it's refreshing to hear that. He never said anything all that bad about David Price, but David Price is somebody that if you say anything that's not great, if you're not putting him on that pedestal, if you're not calling him one of the best in the game, he takes it personally. It affects him. He cares about what you think on social media, in the media, and clearly the jump from the Red Sox to the Dodgers is going to be, like he says, night and day when it comes to the media, because it is a different beast. It is a different beast. And that's not to say, I'm not telling you that I'm not telling you that that's false. That's true. It's a different beast. But But I just get this sense that David Price constantly, just by talking about this, knowing this is going to be a story. Again, Bob Nightingale, I don't think he does David Price any favors with the headline. Like, if I was Price today, I might be a little pissed off with that. I might be like, that's what you chose to write the story about. But again, that's probably what Price is doing because he doesn't want to be portrayed in a negative light at all by anyone in the media or anybody in the world. But this idea that David Price, he's looking for sympathy, right? It happened when he was here, and now it's happening when he's with the Dodgers, like reflecting on his time in Boston. That was, like the headline read, such a grind. The grind in Boston. Price, by continuing to talk about how difficult the media was in this town, how it affected him, how it made his life so bad, he's looking for sympathy. He is screaming and begging for sympathy from people to be like, oh, poor guy. Poor guy. And the one thing I've always told you about David Price is that I am never going to give him that sympathy. He's never going to get that from me. I wrote great things about David Price, the pitcher. All right? I rooted for David Price, the pitcher, maybe more than anybody else in this town. Because David Price, the pitcher, is somebody that I wanted the Red Sox to give $217 million to. It's somebody that I was glad the Red Sox gave $217 million to. And it was somebody that, just from a baseball perspective, would have liked to see Price stay with the Red Sox. But there's just something else there that makes him difficult to root for, even though the baseball side of it I root for. And I've praised him a heck of a lot, more than a lot of other people in this town. But it's this idea that he is looking for sympathy from people because of how much of a grind it was for him in this town because of the media. Like, you're not going to get sympathy from me because you make $30 million a year. And at the end of the day, the grind that you talk about when you deal with the media with the Red Sox is really what? Dan Shaughnessy writing words down on paper about you? Like, you can't get over that? People coming at you on social media? Like, don't use social media. If I made $30 million a year, and I go on this rant all the time, but if I made million, give me $2 million a year. Give me $1 million a year. But I would probably pay someone to just tweet out whatever I need to tweet out. I don't even need to read it. You just drop some bombs on Twitter and get out of there. I don't need to read people. You think I need to read some schmuck's comment from some town out in Western Massachusetts who's probably playing video games and picking his nose on a Saturday night? Like, you think I should care? Forget about caring about what that person says. You think I need to read it? Should I ever even see that? No. Like, dude, you made $30 million in this town to play baseball. And you didn't even play every day. You're a starting pitcher. You played every fifth night. You made $1 million. Every time you walked out to that mound, you made $1 million a start every season with the Red Sox. And yet now that you're no longer with the Red Sox, you're still on this little rant, this thing that you have in your head that's clicking that you need to tell somebody about how difficult it was for you in the town that you spent several years in which you made $1 million every time you went to work, which was once every fifth night. $30 million a year. Averaged out to $2.5 million a month. Oh, you poor guy. You had it so tough. We, the common folk, will never be able to relate to anything that you had to deal with as somebody that was making $2.5 million a month on average. I am so sorry for the grind that you had to be put through. That must have been horrible for you. To know that every time you went out to that mound, you made $1 million. That must have been so bad. How could you deal with a columnist in this town writing something bad about you? If you give me $1 million every time I come into the studio and do a show, I will let you say anything you want, even if it's not true, and I won't give a shit. Knowing that what you write or what you say won't affect any of the money that I'm going to make moving forward, any of the happiness that I will have moving forward, I could care less. Say what you want about me. Make things up. But if you're giving me $1 million every time I come in to do this show, I mean, would that be a grind? Would I be able to consider that a grind if other people... And by the way, it's not like people were making things up about David Price. He confronted Dennis Eckersley on that plane. If you don't get the job done in this town, I could sit here and go, well, you're going to be held accountable. That's strong. But the point is, this is a town that cares. This is a town that uses professional sports as the ultimate escape. It's a love fest for the teams in this town. And if you come here and you don't get the job done, especially if you're a guy that makes that much money, and you struggle a little bit, or you say some things that piss people off, then, you're going to hear about it in the media from the fans. I don't think anyone made anything up about David Price. So at the end of the day, how bad was the media even to deal with for him? He won the World Series. You had a lot of people saying he should have been the World Series MVP instead of Steve Pearce. The year before, when he was coming out of the bullpen in the playoffs, when they played Houston, a lot of people saying David Price was the best player on the team in that series, was the only player in that postseason that showed up in 2017. How bad really was it for David Price? It was so bad that he still has to talk about it to national columnists in spring training when he's with a new team. He's looking for sympathy. He's not going to get it from me, and he shouldn't get it from you. He shouldn't get it from anybody. There should be no sympathy here for him. And the fact that he can't understand that tells me there's just something in his brain that just isn't clicking the right way. Dude, do you really think I should feel sympathy for you? The grind that you had? You're making $30 million a year right now. You don't know shit about a grind. I'll be honest with you. You make $30 million a year playing a professional sport, going out every fifth night to pitch and throw a baseball. You don't know shit about a grind, okay? And this is the blue-collar town like this. Nobody's going to have sympathy for a guy that's talking about grinding it out, making $2.5 million a month, $1.5 million every time he shows up to work. Give me a break, dude. I get it. The Nightingale headline and maybe the way he put the story together definitely doesn't do Price any favors. And if I'm Price, I'd probably be a little pissed as to how he put this together. But, dude, don't even talk about it. You can't bring yourself to just going, if you're asked about it, going, you know what? I won a championship in Boston. They ended up giving me a huge contract. I should be grateful for that. And I got traded, and I'm with Mookie, and this is my new place. The past is in the past. Right now, I'm focused on the Dodgers. I'm focused on winning with the Dodgers. I'm focused on getting this team over that hump. I'm confident in my abilities. I'm more motivated than ever. Let's go. You can't say that? You can't say that! Why can't he say it? Because he wants your sympathy. He wants you to sit there and go, oh, man, he had it so tough in Boston. Oh, wow, that must have been difficult for him. I feel bad for him. He's a good dude who works hard, who shouldn't have to put up with Dan Shaughnessy columns. He shouldn't have to open the newspaper every day and read something negative about his name. Poor guy. I wouldn't want to be him. Dude, I would give anything to be David Price in his situation. I'd literally give anything. And yet he wants people who feel that way to go, tough life he's got. Dude, shut up. It's insane. There's no he obviously can't relate to the common folk. Like, he can't relate to the common person. Man, just don't talk about the media in Boston anymore. It wasn't really that big a deal at the end of the day. And it's just making you look soft. That's all it's doing. And you know, I don't think he's soft. If he was, he wouldn't have performed the way he did in the 2018 postseason. But there is something there that he wants. He wants your sympathy. I'm not going to give it to him, and neither should you. And neither should you.